Greetings, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. Recently, there has been a conversation happening on social media, or at least on Twitter, that I have been seeing quite a lot. And it is a conversational topic that I really want to talk about, and that is radical unschooling. The other day, I came across a thread about a Facebook page for radical unschooling, so naturally I went on to my conservative mom Facebook account that I made and requested joining the group. And of course, as my good Christian mom Facebook page has allowed me to be incognito, I got accepted into the group. And so I have things to talk about. But if you don't know what radical unschooling is, basically it's like homeschooling, but like without the school part. It's child-led everything. Your kids make all the rules. It's learning from real life. They don't have a curriculum. They don't really teach them anything. There's no limits on anything. So these kids have like unlimited screen time. They get to choose their own bedtimes. They get to choose like everything they eat, when they do whatever they want to do, etc. There's no like sit down and teach them maths. There's no teaching them how to read or write. They have to figure out everything just from what life gives them. And that is what radical unschooling is, which obviously is a great idea that never backfires at all, and it works really well all the time. Yeah, we're gonna have a look at some posts from some radical unschoolers. But before we do get into it, I would like to say a massive thank you to today's patron of the day, Maria. I appreciate you and your support so much, so thank you so much for joining, and I hope that you enjoy this video. And if anyone else would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/savvycat or click the link in the description. It starts at as little as £1 a month, and I appreciate it greatly. All right, let's have a dive into some radical unschooling. My almost 10-year-old is very passionate about video games, playing 7 hours a day or more most days. Please help reassure me of all the ways this may help benefit his future. I am just kind of obsessed with just being like, my kid plays video games all day, every day. Hey, can you all tell me why that's good? I can't think of a single reason why this is beneficial at all. So I need you all to tell me how this is going to benefit him. If you don't know that it's beneficial or not, like if you can't figure out how it's beneficial, it's because it probably isn't beneficial. You know, like you should be providing some sort of guidance for your kid. If all they do all day, every day is play video games, that's probably not really that beneficial, is it? When is he socializing? When is he doing exercise? When is he learning how to like read and write and do literally anything else? Like kids need guidance. They're kids. How is playing video games 7 hours every day beneficial? It's not. I'm not going to validate you in how it's going to benefit his future because like it's straight up like not. Commercial comes on. Malik, age 12, responding to everything Kevin Hart is saying. Me, dude, why? Malik, I'm socializing. Love my little oddball. How do you have this conversation and witness this happening and just be like, oh, my silly goofy child, and not like, oh, I am socially depriving my child? Like, how is this something you look at as like cute and silly when it's clearly a cry for help? He didn't even just say like, I'm having a conversation, you know, like not even like a little joke, but like you are actively on a place where you keep your kids at home so they aren't out socializing with people. And you say that it's so silly that your kid talks about socializing as having a conversation with Kevin Hart on a commercial. You really need to have a look at this situation. You really need to assess the situation here and realize and understand that this is a cry for help, and you really need to socialize your child. You need to take him outside of your home activities. Sign him up for clubs, put him in a sport, like send him to school, preferably. But like if you're not gonna do that, be a part of homeschool clubs, you know, like go places with other homeschool kids. He needs to be around people and socializing. Socializing with the TV it's not a good sign. That's not a silly little funny thing. That's a you really need to teach him socializing and have him socialize with people his own age. Has anyone unschooled a child who organically learned to read or write on their own? Like a child who naturally teaches themselves how to stand and walk? And at what age should this happen, please? My child is 8.5, and I recently went to a homeschool event where a reading tutor expressed her disappointment that I missed the window and now my child will struggle. I was under the impression that my child would naturally learn as her desire grew, as with all things in this human life, but would love to see some anecdotes to support us in this unschool journey. Thanks. Thank you. You need to teach your kid to read and write. How are they going to learn that from real life? Reading and writing are not like a natural part of life. You know, like they are like, that's a man-made thing. That is a thing we created and designed to make our lives easier. It is something that is like, you should teach. Like, sure, eventually, maybe they'll be able to teach themselves. However, do you know how hard that is? That's a fucking struggle. Do you know how much easier you would make your child's life if you just taught them how to read and write? And did you know it's not even really that hard? Like, you should be reading to your child. Do you not read to your kid? That's how you learn to read, is you have like picture books and you read them with your child, also looking at the picture book. And then they like memorize what the book says and then they can read it as well. Like that, reading is, as Nick Miller said, I'm not convinced I know how to read. I just memorize what a bunch of words look like. Like that is, that's what reading is. The reason that like children's books all rhyme is because then you're learning what like each letter sound looks like. Like every line ends with like O-O. So every line is like boo, moo, woo. So you learn that like that shape says the oo sound. There's a reason that picture books rhyme and have like repetition. It's because that's how you learn to read. You want your kid to know how to read? You have to read to them. And you want them to write? Like get them to copy the books. Like print out worksheets. It's like words and then like dotted lines and just have them trace the words. Like it's not that difficult. Having them wait until they're 8.5 and then being like, was I meant to teach them? I thought they'd just, how are they meant to learn if you aren't providing with the resources to learn? You can't just expect them to pick up a book and know how to read it. They have to like know how to say the words. Are you like trying to learn another language by just getting a book out of the library in a language you've never read before and just looking at it being like, yep, I know what that means. No, you're not. Are you gonna go pick up like a book in Japanese, which is a totally different alphabet, and then just look at it and be like, yep, I can understand that without anyone saying any of those words to me or showing me how to write them? Like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Surely you can understand that that is ridiculous. It's not how it works. How do others handle feeling like a complete failure? My 19-year-old can only do very basic maths and cannot spell or write and argues about everything. The 12-year-old argues about everything also. I am so burned out and doing absolutely everything with zero help. How does everyone else make this work? I'm so burned out and doing everything with zero help because like you clearly weren't doing very much when they were younger because they never learned how to read or write. And also like you want help. You could just, I don't know, send them to school where you don't have to do anything. Or if you don't want to send them to school, get a private tutor or something. You know, like you didn't have to do this all on your own. There is like a free place for your kids to go where they can actually learn. And surely, like, if your kid is 19 and doesn't know how to write and can only do basic maths, like, surely there was a point where you were like, I'm clearly not doing a good job here. My teenager doesn't know how to write. Like, surely at that point, you should have sent him somewhere. Like, it's too late to send him to school because that's, like, required knowledge by that point, but you at the very least should send him somewhere, have a tutor, like, teach him how to write. You should really do it. But if I was a teenager and didn't know how to write or like do any of that basic shit, I'd be fucking pissed off too. I would also argue all the time. I would be so mad that I was never provided with the tools to learn basic shit. Like I would feel so neglected, you know? Like if I was never provided the tools to learn, I would just kind of feel like my parent didn't care about me. Like you didn't care enough to spend time with me to teach me these things that everyone else knows. It must be infuriating. And like you should feel like a failure. Like you just should, because you did fail. You didn't have to keep your kid home and not teach them for 19 years. That's a decision you made and you failed. You harmed your child by not allowing them to have an education. If you're not cut out to like teach your kids, send them to school. Some people are mean and bitter because they had a rough childhood. Some people are kind and caring for that same reason. Are you trying to say that people are that some people are kind and caring because they had a rough childhood? Is this trying to say that hardship builds character? Because like, if you're trying to imply that some kids are kind and caring because they had kind and caring childhoods, that is not at all what was implied here. I cannot read it like that because that is not how it reads. So I have to assume this means that like, you have a rough childhood, you're either going to be mean and bitter or you're going to be kind and caring. It could go either way. And like, it's astounding because there are parents who like will validate and justify their shitty behavior because their kids grew up okay. Like, you unschool your kid, you make them feel neglected, you make them unsocial, you harm them in ways where like they only have basic skills, they can barely read, they only know very basic maths, they had to teach everything to themselves and didn't have anyone to help, never learned how to ask for help, etc. And then like still get careers and be independent. And these parents will be like, see, I did a great job. I taught you how to be independent. It's like, okay, sure, I can be independent, but also, that doesn't take away from the pain. It doesn't take away from the anxiety. It doesn't take away from the fact that I don't know how to ask for help. It doesn't take away from the fact I don't know how to set boundaries. Like, there are pros and cons to everything. Just because someone overcomes the hardship you gave them and they're doing successfully doesn't mean they're doing well mentally. Like, you can be doing good and also doing bad at the same time. You can be rich because you've like got a good job and like be fucking miserable, you know? Like, just because your child goes on to be successful doesn't mean what you did was right. And just because your kid is kind and caring doesn't mean they're kind and caring towards themselves. When you follow the crowd, you lose yourself, but when you follow your soul, you will lose the crowd. Eventually your soul tribe will appear, but do not fear the process of solitude. But like, not necessarily. Isolating your kid so they don't follow the crowd is like not the way to do it. Like, you realize that like isolation counts as abuse, right? Like, if you don't let your kid have socializing outside of you, that's isolation and that is abuse. And it also means that like, you know, they're not learning social skills. They're not going to follow the crowd later, sure, but they're also going to struggle to make any friends or any connections at all because they never learned how to do that. A massive reason school is so important is the socializing aspect. Sure, learning to read and write, etc. That is all very important. But socializing is like 80% of why school is so important. You need to have those skills in order to like survive in the world, you know? Having social anxiety is really fucking hard. Not knowing how to talk to people and like build connections is a fucking difficult thing, and you are depriving your child of that. Follow your soul and you'll find your soul people. But how are you meant to find your soul people if you never learned how to talk to people and build connections in the first place? Like, if your kid is just talking to Kevin Hart on TV, how are they learning to actually hold a conversation? They're not. How many of you have been radically unschooling forever, as in never have your kids been to school? And also, how many of you have had kids asked to go to school due to loneliness and boredom? We have homeschooling forever for 12 years now, but my daughter and son also beg to school because they are bored and lonely. If your kids are bored and lonely, then you are doing a bad job of homeschooling. If you want to homeschool your kids, you have to put in the effort. You can't just like let your kids just exist and not give them anything, not do anything. If your kids are just bored and begging you to go to school, personally, you should let them go to school. But it also just means you are being neglectful, because homeschool should not just be your kids being like, I am bored, I am lonely. One, as we've said, you need to set up socializing, go to some other homeschool groups, do some activities. And two, they're bored? Are you not providing them with anything? At the very least, get them like books to read, get some like print off maths sheets, get some like arts and crafts. You can focus learning around real life situations if you want to. Like you can set up maths games and like reading games. You can set up like science experiments or whatever. But like the thing with this unschooling thing is it's like parents who are just against the school system, but also just like don't know how to and don't want to teach their kids. So it's like, I want my kids to figure out how the real world works based off of real life experiences with no one teaching them. No, you still need to teach them. That you either send them to school to learn at school or you teach them. You can't just throw your kids out there and be like, do what you want. Like, like sure, they'll learn some basic life skills and sure, there'll be like natural consequences to some things that happen. But like, if your kid wants to be like a fucking architect, they need to learn like trigonometry. They need to learn geometry. They need to learn a whole bunch of skills. And they can't learn that from life. You know, like sometimes you need to teach them. Like sure, there are a few people who have figured out that shit, like the people who created the concepts and whatever. Like, but they had other knowledge to help them go and figure that out. Like you need base knowledge. You need to learn in order to learn. Yeah? If your kid wants to be like a fucking astronaut, you know, you need to know maths, you need to know physics. Like you can't just be like, learn from life and you can be anything you want. You are so restricting the careers your kids can go into. Maybe they want a career that requires a certain aspect, like a certain skill, and you're just not providing that. They're not going to go and be able to learn calculus by looking at the flowers. Like that's not going to happen. You need to take charge and you need to teach them shit. What the fuck? My Instagram reels have been completely fucked. I'm gonna make a whole video about just what my Instagram reels look like. But yesterday, a radical unschooling reel came up. And so I feel like I want to show this because it's something.
So we don't teach our children anything. Everything that they learn is in response to either their interests or their questions. We have no curriculum, we have no school hours. We really just respond whenever they want to know something and do our best to make sure they really get it. I was concerned that they would never be interested in things like reading and writing and math. My son's 6 and it took some patience and not comparing myself to other moms, but this is his book. Look at this. Lamp, egg, jar. This is him doing this by himself. Copying down words from other places, asking us more. Same with addition. Mom, what's 7 plus 5? It will come at the right time. Follow their interests and they will learn everything they need to learn, not what other people need them to learn. You're welcome.
Okay. That is your son's writing at 6, right? He has never learned to read or write. At 6 years old, he has picked up a pen and he has gone and just copied words and then asked you what they mean. At 6. Like, I know everyone learns at a different speed, and that's not necessarily bad for a 6-year-old. Like, some 6-year-olds are going to struggle more than others. And like some kids have like learning disabilities or whatnot, and that's totally fine. That is a separate issue. With the information I have is a kid who does not have any learning disabilities at all, but is having to figure out how to do this shit on his own with absolutely zero guidance and zero help. He clearly wants to learn how to read and write, but it is such a struggle to do that on your own. This is the thing, is it's like he figured this out on his own. That's so impressive. And what are you going to do? Are you going to keep just making him do it on his own? Are you just going to be like, great, he started, so now he can just keep copying down words and I'm going to keep telling him what they mean? Do you know how much harder you're making his life? You think that this is beneficial and going to be helping. All it's doing is like making it so difficult. You're like, your kids will have no energy going to school all week and they're not going to have time to do the things that they love. Like, do you know how much more energy it's going to take to try to learn everything from nothing with absolutely no help? Again, I'm going back to the whole like, if my parent didn't offer to help me learn how to read and write when clearly I'm showing an interest in it, I would be so upset. If my parent left me to figure out how to learn everything all on my own, I'm gonna feel neglected. It just feels lazy. It just feels like you don't actually care. My son wrote the word lion with absolutely no help. Do you know how much easier it would have been if you just fucking helped him? Do you know how much easier it would have been if when he was like 3, you like sat down and read a picture book with him and told him what the words were and asked him to read it? If you like printed out worksheets and like got him to trace letters, do you know how much easier it would be and how much less energy it would use to do that? Because why would he dedicate so much of his time doing this when you also let him just like go play all the time and go pursue his interests? How many of his interests are going to require reading and writing? And like, he's going to want to do that at a more advanced level than he's capable of doing because you never taught him how to read and write. Those are such important skills that you cannot take for granted. Mom, what's 5 + 7? It's like, great, I'm glad he's asking, but clearly, surely take that as a sign of the fact that he wants to learn basic facts. Teach him his timetable. Teach him how to add and subtract. Give him an abacus. Like, teach him how shit works. Don't just expect him to, you can't figure everything out by like, just life. That's just not how it fucking works. Oh my God. These kids, so many of them are either gonna grow up to be way too codependent or resent you. Or both. Both can happen. Just resentful codependency. That is what you're doing here. I'm a bit concerned and please need some advice or at least some kind words for my nervous system. It's about reading. I'm be honest and it make me feel wrong or feeling we don't do enough. We live 24/7 together, travel through the US, they on their tablets whenever they want. We do board games, card games, and just live in the day. All our days are actually play-based, and for sure we're busy on meet all the needs of our 4 kids during the day. Sometimes it seems impossible, and that's what me feel struggling, I guess. My oldest, for example, isn't interested in reading or writing. He's turning 9 in October. My 6-year-old is interested, and we do some reading, letter flashcards, and things like that. I mean, we're surrounded with words and letters, but is this enough? How does it exactly go learn to read by their own? I'm not confident at the moment that they really learn to read without teaching them. My oldest avoid any kind of teaching he likes to go in his own path of learning. And that is what I have in my mind and want to do. In practice, it's a different story. When did your kids start to read and how? Thank you so much. Well, the grammar and spelling in here is not great on its own. I feel like you need to go over and rehash some of that or at least proofread your posts before posting them. That, I guess, in itself says somewhat about teaching your kids. But like, I am obsessed with like, one kid wants to learn reading and writing and one kid doesn't. And you're more leaning towards the side of the kid that doesn't. Just being like, there are words that exist out in the world. Why aren't they just learning from looking at words? If you don't read the words to them, how are they gonna know what they say? How can you expect someone to just like look at something and know what it says without you telling them? You have to learn the different sounds of your letters. You have to, like, you can't just look at something and know how it works. You have to be taught. Some things have to be taught. And like, you should definitely be teaching your 9-year-old to read. You can't just be like, my 9-year-old doesn't want to read, so like, why does my 6-year-old want to read? My girls are trying a new youth group. I dropped them off about 20 minutes later, got a text from the youth pastor's wife saying my girls wanted to leave. I got one from my daughters too. Of course, I immediately went to get them. They were visibly upset. The lady went on about how she's sorry they weren't comfortable and that they weren't following the rules. We left and my girls said they got yelled at for using a bathroom they weren't supposed to. They didn't know. So they went downstairs but didn't like the music they were playing, so they went outside to an attached playground. They got security called on them. It made the church staff uncomfortable that they were outside. They needed to stay where they were told, blah, blah, blah. The lady said, I'm a public school teacher. I know how to handle a big group of teens. You need to come inside and sit with us. You need to listen to the adults. My oldest daughter told her she wasn't comfortable with the situation. She said, we are homeschooled and we have autonomy over ourselves. We can leave if we want. The woman had the nerve to tell my kids that I'd be upset to have my plans interrupted to go get them. I'm so proud of my kids though, because they told her that their mom would stop whatever she was doing and never be upset to come help them for any reason. Anyway, they were so shocked that they were treated like brats because of simple rules they weren't aware of. I feel so bad for them. They are so outspoken and independent. They definitely won't be talked down to, but it's led to quite a few showdowns with other adults. And I just find this one so interesting because like, yes, it's good that your kids know they can call you anytime and you'll come get them. Like, that's good. I'm glad you have that. But like, your kids should know that like when you are somewhere, you need adult supervision. If you're going to a youth group or you're going to be somewhere with a bunch of kids and there's an adult around, like you have to remain with the other kids. The adults need to know where you are. Like you're like, they didn't know that rule. They should know that rule. They definitely should know that rule. Sometimes rules are there and they exist for safety. Not enforcing rules for safety purposes is like not a good thing. And not something to like gloat about. Your kids should still know how to follow rules. Like we have bodily autonomy, we can leave if we want to. Okay, but like you're putting yourselves in danger though. Like I know the playground was attached to the church, but if all the adults are inside, they don't know that the kids are just out on the playground. They don't know they can trust these kids. They don't know these kids. It's their responsibility to look after them. And if something happened to those kids, well, those kids were in their care. That's then their fault, isn't it? You're gonna be fucking pissed off that your kids got fucking kidnapped. I don't know, like, you know? There are safety reasons. There are reasons why your kids need to be supervised by adults. And like, maybe you should let them know that before you take them places. Tell them about the safety. Be like, you need to be safe. You need to stay where there is an adult present. You need to participate in whatever. Like, you don't have to participate. You can sit out if you don't want to be. But like, tell an adult where you're going. Stay within eye reach of adults. Like, you know, like these are things that they should actually know. And if they don't know how to follow rules now as teenagers, how are they going to follow rules later on? Like most jobs have rules unless they're like working for themselves, and even then you have to set your own sort of rules to follow. You know what I mean? Like most jobs, they are going to have to follow rules. To be a part of society, you do have to follow other people's rules, and you should really learn how to do that. Like there's a difference between making decisions for yourself and then also like being selfish. You know what I mean? And I'm not necessarily saying they're being selfish in this situation, but there are instances in which this could lead to selfishness, you know? You have to take other people into consideration. Radical unschooling means reprioritizing your life. The core concept being to put family first instead of the cultural practice of allowing the institution to be put first. Schools force parents to put family second. Children have to obey the teachers and parents have to obey the schools. When you choose unschooling, you choose freedom on a level you never dreamed was possible. You can have it if you really want it. Why does it have to be unschooling instead of just homeschooling? Like, why do you need to go about like giving your children complete 100% control over everything and not ever teaching them or spending any time with them? Like, why is that the solution to not going to an institution? And like schools exist because like, you know, firstly, they allow parents to be able to go to work. It's somewhere your kids can go so they're supervised, so parents can work and earn money because, you know, we live in a capitalistic society and money is kind of important. You've got somewhere to send your kids, and also they're like doing the learning that is required to be like a functional member of society. Like being able to read and write is important. Learning maths is important. Learning basic biology, the functions of your body, health class, like etc. You also have like the arts at school. It allows kids to test out a bunch of things and see what they're interested in. And also the social aspect of it, right? Like, yes, family is important, but so are friends. And you absolutely should not be like, family is the only thing that matters. You don't need friends. You don't need to socialize with anyone else. It's just us, and you can do what you want here, and you don't need friends. I'm not going to teach you how to interact with friends, because why do you need friends when you have me? Like, that's not healthy. That is not the way to do it. There needs to be balance. School is great for so many reasons. Yes, there are bad parts of school. Yes, there is some parts of the curriculum that need to be looked at and need to be changed. But overall, like, school is it's a great thing. Do I think that like parts of it need to change? As I said, yes, some of the curriculum needs to change. I think that the idea of like a homework in general is like not a thing that we should be doing. Like, school should exist at school. School should exist at school. And school is important and you learn a lot, and it's great. And it's great. And you can homeschool your kids if you really want to, but like you also need to not exist only within your own bubble. You still have to experience the world and interact with other people. School is an institution that sells a dictatorship as the norm in the manipulative little package disguised as an education. This dictatorship grooms children to distrust themselves and to obey authority while severing the bond between parent and child. It is the breaking of this attachment and connection within the family that is essential for the continuation of the agenda of those in power. Radical unschooling renders the system obsolete. When children are born free and kept whole, it is the beginning of a powerful uprising in society. The collapse of the authoritarian paradigm begins at home. Now, see, I argue that, like, unschooling also severs bonds between parent and child because there's no separation there. You're just like forcing codependency. And also in a lot of the ways we've talked about and read already, there's a lot of neglect that exists and there's a lot of resentment that would bloom there. Because if you are feeling neglected, not a great thing, is it? If you are someone who like wants to learn maths and no one is helping you and makes you learn yourself and your parent is right there who knows how to do that and it's just like, you'll figure it out. Like, that must suck so bad. There's so much resentment there. Having your entire life revolved around your house and your parent and never being given the option to like socialize or learn outside of that. Like, do you understand the level of resentment that would be there? The like wedge you are putting between yourselves? Because like one day they're gonna leave and realize they don't have all the knowledge that other people have. They don't have all the knowledge that they wish that they did. They never had the opportunity to learn what they wanted to learn. Like school, sure, is like raising capitalists. That's like the point of it, is it's preparing you to go and like live in capitalism and contribute to society in that way. And it's teaching you that success is really important. And like American schools do everything like multi-choice and whatever, and it's all very black and white. And like, but unschooling is not really the answer. You kind of just need a sort of balance. The schools need to improve, sure, that is a thing. And also you still need to have conversations at home and you need to learn about social boundaries and you need to still know that like connections with people are important, and you can have a connection with your kid and a wonderful relationship with your child while also sending them to school. Like, they do not have to be mutually exclusive. If you think that you are not going to be able to have a relationship with your kid if they're in school, what are you afraid they're going to learn that is going to make them think that you shouldn't have a good relationship? Like, what do you think they are going to encounter either through seeing other kids and their relationships with their parents or what they learn at school that is going to make them not want to be your friend? Like, what are you afraid of here? Why do you think that sending them to school is going to sever that connection that you have? Like, I just am curious to know. I think that I'm going to end this video here because I thought I had more screenshots from this group, but it seems that I do not. Maybe I'll do another one of these at a later point. Let me know if you'd be interested in a part 2 because there's a lot here. There's a lot to talk about. But basically, like, kids having autonomy is important. Kids setting boundaries and having those boundaries respected is important. But learning and having help and learning how to ask for help and accept help is also incredibly important. Socializing is incredibly important. Providing for your children is incredibly important. And it's astounding to me that people think that denying them of those things is somehow helping them. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please, if you did, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I upload every 4 or so days, and I would love to see you again in 4 more days. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. I appreciate you greatly. And a huge, huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons: Bobby, Josh, Mandy, Ikazel, Jessica, Eldo, Danielle, Elias, Chris, Samuel, Radsack, Mr. Noodle, Jonathan, and Bonbon. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, you go to patreon.com/savvycat. Click the top link in the description. For as little as £1 a month, you get my videos a day early, as well as podcasts a week early. And then for £3 and up, you get things such as outtakes, bonus mini podcasts, live streams, vlogs, and more. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah. When you close your eyes, you replace